Alright, welcome back to another fantastic episode of I'm Gonna Talk, You're Gonna Listen. I'm in my office. So we're gonna read through the community notes first, and then so if you want to skip this part, go ahead, I don't care. So this is the part where I respond to you, the viewers, and tell you thank you, and read your comments. So this is in response to a post where I said it took 10 years, literally 10 years, but I'm back up to a semblance of my prior watch time. So that's good news. That means if I keep this up in a few more months, I might actually get remonetized. And some of you don't care about that, and I don't care that you don't care. I think I have my opinions about that, but whatever. It matters to me because some of my videos already have ads, and any side gig is worth it if it even brings in a few bucks for me. So it adds up. So I'm gonna keep trying to get these watch hours, and if you can watch or listen to as many videos as you can, or if you know, I have some even longer form content to get my watch hours up if you get bored. And I have some of my books poorly narrated by me on here. So if you care about my watch hours as much as I do, there are some playlists and some long form content that you can really sink your teeth into if you want. Or if you have YouTube Red, I think hitting the download button through YouTube's official thing gives me watch hours too. Okay. Whoops. So the filters are working again, so here we go. Granny Southern Corner says, I just have to keep plugging along. I find it amazing how some channels zoom to their goal in a few months while others don't, when they're both putting in the same amount of work. Maybe different content, but both equally good. So Granny brings up a good point that I've been talking about for a while, which is when people are worried about there being fed content, whether that means that they're an informant, an enabler, or so on, or some kind of a divider. It is very common for what I would call the fed channels to absolutely zoom up in popularity despite not having any different production value than anybody else does. And that is because typically their CIA handlers are pulling strings on the back end, or they feed them into the network, which is the correct influencers to get them the correct exposure, because the CIA has their own influencers and their own marketing and their own merch stores, and you name it. It's all tied together. They go, oh, these are just coincidences, but they happen so much that they can't be. Just like when the lefty loos have the no things happen, and all the no people seem to be orbiting around exactly the same person. I try not to use names on this channel, but where there's smoke, there's fire. That's just the bottom line. Rural says, keep going. I enjoy your videos. Thank you, Rural. You're one of the people that keeps me going doing this long form content, because for the longest time I was lucky to have two people, CDK and Birio, that seemed to watch these or listen to them in the background, and that's exactly what these are for. These are for listening in the background. They're long form podcasts. There's people, I think maybe even you and I have talked about this. There's people that'll listen to 4.5 hour podcasts. There's some people that can do 10 minutes, and there's some people that can do 30 seconds, and they're all wildly different ways. Sometimes the 10-minute people can do the 1 hour stuff, but usually not. So the fact that I'm finding my long form buddies means more to me than you can ever imagine. And I wish YouTube did more to promote it's long form content to people that just specifically digest long form content. And I think they do to an extent, but I think they also discourage long form content because you constantly get the are you sure that you're really there listening? I digest long form content too, especially like a lot of music on YouTube. And are you sure you're really listening? And because of how my brain works, those interruptions are extremely detrimental to me. And you know what YouTube could just do is just lower the resolution on them or something, so automatically, so people could keep listening. Anyway, Granny Southern Corner responds to the waiting another week for the art book and says look forward to it. Heart granny face. That's very sweet of you. Yes, Amazon said they had another technical difficulty and another delay shipping what by all intents and purposes should be the last copy of the art book before I hit the go button. I was ready to review it and hit the go button days ago. Now it's not going to be till next weekend. So I'm debating whether to do an in-depth review of it or not, or if I should just do the thumb through, or if I should just go through the first couple pages. I might do just a little bit of all the above. I might flick through it really fast so you can see that it's not just a bunch of blank pages, and then maybe I'll cover the first 10 pages or so. The quality of the content and the type of content and the reason for the content in the book shift a lot, so I also don't want to give people the wrong idea, but there's a lot of AI work in there, but there's a lot of hand-drawn work too. And there's a reason for that. It all coalesces together. And I hope people will give it a chance. Roll says to episode 113, Smoke and Mirrors, that sucks about the heat and smoke. Sorry about the plants, but at least the bugs are gone. Yeah, so we finally ended up getting rain. Thank goodness. I was watering all the way through yesterday, and my plants were still heat stressed, despite it like not even breaking like 75 or something, just because of the humidity and the smog. And so it's been, and it pitter pattered a little bit last night, and it rained pretty decent earlier. So I'm hoping that relieves the last of the heat stress. Southern Granny Corner, Granny faces and said, hope I get my mic stuff figured out. I think I'm not sure if I figured out why I lost that episode. I don't know if my dingle dongle got unplugged or if it got wet. I think it did get wet. Or if the microphone just couldn't handle the sprinkler. But I don't think that was it, because I think it just freaked out the entire episode. So, I kind of have two options, don't record and spray anymore. Just kind of a bummer, because that was fun and it gives me something to do while I'm watering. Or get a new mic that can handle it a little bit better, maybe. But those are just crazy expensive. So I'm still on the fence about that. Negative Death Space says, why do we catch and release for illegals? Why not citizens? This is in response to this guy that tried to steal, I think, an 11-year-old girl, which was caught on film, to be clear. And they didn't ankle monitor him, and he didn't show up to any of his court hearings. And he was supposed to actually plead guilty, to kind of plead down a little bit, and he just never showed up, and they can't find him. And now they have to issue a bench warrant, and goodness only knows they're probably not going to find him, because there's a lot going on. So yeah, this is the second or third catch and release. The guy that pulled the barista out of the coffee shop, you know, he got, and you know, he looked like an illegal, and you know, he was just having a bad day or whatever. There's a lot of that going around lately. The trans guy that did the no stuff to the Catholic school, you know, they had said that he had just broken up with his girlfriend too, which I don't blame her. The dude was obviously a nut job. This whole like, oh, people just had bad days and so they went and did XYZ and then they just get immediately let back out again. This is why the country is just devolving into just absolute lawlessness. And people say, oh, you're fear mongering. Oh, this is fear porn, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this is reality. And people are just refusing. Oh, well, it doesn't happen that much. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't happen once. There shouldn't be one person trying to steal a child from a park. I don't care if they had a bad day. There shouldn't be one person trying to rip a barista out of a coffee shop, especially now when jobs are already hard to get. And people are already on edge, and people are already kind of at their last options. The last even remotely decent, honest-ish options. And, you know, you send your daughter out into the world, or you send your sister out into the world, what have you. You expect that they're okay, and continually society is showing that it's definitely not okay. And I guess case in point, I'm not going to show you the video, but Irina Zarutska got stabbed to death a couple weeks ago on a train. She was a Ukrainian refugee that just got here. And a person of a certain ethnicity just got up with a knife and stabbed her to death for absolutely no reason in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm not going to show the video, but there's a video of the whole thing. And she'd escaped Ukraine and resettled here and was immediately killed. Immediately just brutally slaughtered. And this guy had a rap sheet a mile long. He shouldn't have been out. And while this is horrible, Ringo's being a bit crabby. While this is tragic and horrible, it has the dual purpose of driving a giant wedge between the ethnicities and making it harder for everybody to collaborate, to move forward. And I still have just a very firm belief that people are using the low IQ ferals to take out other ethnicities and cause these massive divisions. And they do it in just the most brutal ways possible. And just like culture has been influenced by rap and more, the rhetoric has encouraged their culture that, you know, the other culture is just not worth anything. And so I don't recommend looking this up. The video is an actual crime happening that's just with the worst possible ending. So, yeah. So the inmates, Ringo's really doing it today. He won't calm down. So we're in the mental institution, is what I'm trying to tell everybody. People really need to wake up. This isn't fear. Stop it. Ringo. This isn't fear mongering. It's just reality. Ignoring politics, I know people. I ignore politics. Well, you're an idiot. People. I ignore the news. Well, you're an idiot. People are getting murdered and ripped out of their homes, ripped out of their places of work every day, and you're ignoring it. You're part of the problem. If you're ignoring this and not planning accordingly, you're part of the problem. Your indifference is allowing this to perpetuate. CDK says, I am sunburn. And so I said, you'll get vitamins and like it. Burio says that was a spicy talk. This is in regards to my spicy talk video. I'm trying to cover more prepper topics that people just aren't covering. Hold on. There, I got Ringo some treats. Hopefully he stops distracting me. So, I'm trying to cover topics that everyone else isn't covering. It's really hard. I get tired of nukes and canned food. You know, gas masks are neat. You know, even like night vision and stuff is neat. But like, I'm trying to talk about the rest of it. You know, the upstream impacts, like them taking away phones from kids, but then wanting to use AI to teach them. So it's like, it's okay for teachers to, it's okay for the school districts to, you know, have their own devices with screens. And kids have had monitors for, 30 years. Computers have been in school for 30 years and now they want to take phones away. Give me a break. So I'm trying to talk about a little bit different stuff. I don't know how it's going to work, but we're trying. I'm trying to just tread lightly on it and not just like crash through it, because race relations are terrible. The economy is terrible, and I'm trying to be sensitive while still covering it. Same thing with animals, like, these junkyard dogs running around. People are really sensitive to dog stuff, but like, you have to accept that there's junkyard dogs running around. People are sensitive towards bunnies. I had one eat like a whole zucchini. Like, the bunny ate the whole zucchini. So I have to be sensitive to bunny owners, but understand, like, I'm not doing these episodes to be your friend either. I'll find my audience sooner or later. I just hope that I don't lose everybody else in the meantime. So I'm trying to be sensitive. So when I talk about race and ethnicity, I've been talking about culture for a long time. That's all my books are about, is about culture, and they're about coming together. But if we're not coming together, then I should be able to talk about how we're being divided. Anyway. Gnostic Nomad says, touched on some great points. Enjoyed listening while I did my edits. Wish you had a more stable connection to the interwebs. Yeah. I haven't seen the line workers in months. I have no idea what on earth is going on. I have my wireless 5G router set on either the washer or the dryer, and sometimes one or the other makes a better ground plane and managed to get a much better connection. So that's why I've been able to do a little bit more long form content. Yeah, more about that later if anybody cares. Gnostic Nomad says, console or PC? Yeah, I do use I play Division 2 on a console. No, just kidding. I played on a PC. I haven't got a new console since the Wii and 360. I think consoles peaked after, or Wii and 360 consoles peaked. Everything after that was just needless catch up. The Xbone was okay, but they didn't port a lot of games. The PS4 was like a dog shit system in terms of power. The hardware on it was just so old that it held an entire generation of games back before people finally slowly adopted the PS5. And the Wii was a generation old when it launched. The Switch was at least a full generation old when it launched, and now the Switch 2 is probably like a half a generation old. And I just can't. I hate to say that I just can't justify XY. Like, consoles, there's aside from the fact that the video card is kind of redonkulous sometimes, there's no excuse that you can't just build a decent PC. There's unless like it's a crazy bull market for crypto or AI at the time, the cards come down and you can get the card, and the card will last you a plenty long time. I don't know. But we and 360 were had massive digital libraries that they never fully ported. And so, yeah. Royal says, great talk. Yuri messaged me. Yuri is one of the originals. Of course I remember you, Yuri. Royal says, hurry up and fix it with the mic. I think I did. CDK was talking about how he was getting the notifications 9 hours later that my video is finally updated. Yeah, it's been really bad. I think, who was it? Hudson Valley posted one, and I think I didn't get it till like 12 hours later. It's really bad. That's also why I was talking to Nick Easy and talking about spacing videos out. And I try to space my videos out 24 hours. And that's part of the thing is like people might get notifications immediately. They might get notifications like an hour later. They might get notifications like a day later. And I'm sure some people want more content, but the notification system completely, if you even follow 2 or 3 YouTubers, the notification system just gets too clogged. And if you don't click on them, it turns your notifications off anyway. So, Show says howdy. Hello, Show. LMDMT says, oh, this is in response to my tree planting video that, by the way, I worked really hard on and nobody watched because working on putting harder work into a video that means something near and dear to your heart doesn't help you at all. So LMDMT says, when planting trees, consider the size of the crown. Your roots will extend out below as far as the branches do above ground. That is a fantastic visual mental reminder. And that is really important. Also, you should, if you have a ton of different apple trees, you should try to be staging and staggering them so they don't all go ripe at the same time, but that's hard to do. But usually 10 to 12 feet for apples usually is okay, but you also have to keep in mind that if one of them grows 10 to 12 feet one way, and then the next one grows 10 to 12 feet the other way, they're going to run right into each other. I don't necessarily think that's the end of the world because they're going to kind of, 50 years from now, in which none of us are going to matter, if some asshole doesn't come saw them down, they're all going to be kind of like an interlocking, tree of apples. And I think that's going to be okay, and maybe in the ice storms and snow and stuff, maybe they'll be able to help each other a little bit. I mostly did it, though, for the wind. I was trying to make it to where sort of kind of no matter which direction, because they're all kind of a little offset. They're not in a perfect grid. They'll all be able to help slow the wind down at least a teeny tiny bit, no matter what direction the wind is whipping through, even though it usually only goes east to west, west to east, but it'll hopefully like slow it down. Anyway. I wish I had included that. There was a couple more tips and tricks I wish I'd included in that. That tree planting video unfortunately went nowhere. 2 people commented, so. And one of them just commented a silly thing. Barrio commented a silly comment. So I never really got any real feedback on that video. So that's a bummer. Vario says at some point a shaman may need to be called in. I think that's in regards to the weather. But also, I rant about people's stupid opinions a lot. I really the whole just move. I think people said to the Californians, just move, like regarding their 2A rights, regarding their self-defense rights. Like, I think if you have to just move because your Second Amendment got taken away, and if you were part of that Second Amendment being taken away, you shouldn't just move. You should actually stay and just have to deal with it forever if it's partially your responsibility that the Second Amendment got removed. Don't go live somewhere else unless you're going to be planning on reinforcing their Second Amendment. And how that, I can't tell you what that looks like because I'll get black bagged. And Rural's reminding to leave comments. Thank you, Rural. The comments help a lot. Negative death space. Oh, it was responding to the. I made this funny card game called Guess the Fed. Everyone's familiar with this one. I think this wasn't January 6th. I don't remember, but everyone's familiar with this one. But here locally, there was this one. It's the gal version. I can't remember who took this, but I think this was in Washington. And so I was thinking of this card game called Guess the Fed, and whoever you were, like, you have to kind of like those card games where you have to like guess who's who. And so Negative Death Space was saying it's the one in the sunglasses, and that's funny because all these guys are wearing sunglasses, but these gals, I think maybe only one or two are wearing sunglasses. So I think that's funny. I think that would actually make a really good card game. I want to make like prepper games, and like Guessing the Fed would be good. It'd be funny. Like someone's asking, when are we going to go do something about this? And then you go put that in the suspicious box, and somebody's like, somebody's pistols are all in 40 cal. And you put that in the suspicious box. It's like, someone's canning and jarring. And you like put that in the boring box. Ohio says, or OVP says, I'm not the Fed, or am I? And Jason later on says, you're an escaped alien from Wright-Patterson. I think the key to all this, I have a whole giant thing. I think I already talked about it, but I'm not sure if I was going to talk about it more. It's just the key to keep the feds away, or the informants, or the shit stirrers, or whatever you want to call them, enablers. The key is to just be boring and don't do or say anything stupid. And then they've got no reason to look at you, and they've got no reason to infiltrate you, and they've got no reason to do anything. And if they do, you just don't talk to them and just continue being boring and saying and doing stupid things. That doesn't mean get intimidated into not going and doing a protest or march or something. But, just be boring. If your intent is to march, keep a tight, keep your group tight and do your march. The thing is, like, you're going to get accused of being, here's the irony, side note. You're going to get accused of being a Fed by all the other conservatives. If you're too well organized, everyone's going to call you a Fed. Like, look at Patriot Front. They're feds. People that should know way, way, way better call them feds. They're feds. Look at them. They're feds. Look, they're wearing the same uniforms. They're feds. Look, they got out of U-Hauls. They're feds. Like, and people just think it's so funny, and then they sit back and cross their arms and think they just have it figured out. And it's like, they sit back, and act like they said something super poignant as if nobody has heard it 10 trillion times, as if it hasn't been debunked 10 billion times. Oh, big surprise. Where did Patriot Front go? Where did the feds go? All of a sudden, where did the feds go? It's like, they're not actually doing anything. They're just marching around. They haven't done any no-no stuff. They're being boring. Okay? It's a giant night and day difference between, you know, people marching around and, oh, they're all in shape. It's like, well, okay, so is a group that hikes all the time. Oh man, I just get so frustrated. The whole Fed thing, I get so frustrated. Real feds or informants or you know, whatever. There's different kinds, like I've said. They have way more resources than everybody else for some reason. They have way more access to everything. They almost exclusively have some kind of CIA informant or something in the group that's actually pulling the strings and doing everything, like an actual handler. They just have access to like nearly infinite money, and they never seem to get busted for anything. They do lots and lots of dumb shit. They also have access to sponsors that like nobody else has. You know, everybody else has got their Raid Shadow Legends and World of Warships and BetterHelp and these same, you know, the same 5 or 6, you know, or that dumb buy a piece of land, buy one little, be the lord of your, all, like, everybody will have the same ones because they're all hooked into that same, I can't remember the name of it, the place that just kind of hooks everybody up together so everybody can have their own sponsors. And then there's people that suspiciously like have sponsors that like just nobody can get. It's like, how the hell did you get that sponsor? Nobody is sponsored by them at all. Anyway, CDK says hi. Barrio says he hasn't seen a bee all season. We don't have honeybees here, but there is a huge bumblebee hive somewhere, and they came out for the not for the zucchini. They came out for the cucumbers. They're very happy. James says when he goes to bed, he puts on Crowder. And then when he wakes up, my shows are playing somehow. I think that's funny. He seems to like them. I don't know. I hope he likes my shows. Barrio says he need bees. Barrio says he saved the Baofeng video. I did that troubleshooting video because a bunch of people were asking me for Baofeng troubleshooting help. I want to do one more where I describe how to install without Windows updates. Without having Windows updates turned on, the PCO3 and the WTO4, whatever, the two different Baofeng cables. So we'll see how that goes for people that say, I can't get it installed. Either you've got a counterfeit cable or you got to install it yourself. And I want to do a video about that, but it's taking a little more time. CDK is talking about the jackalope image I did, the mouse jackalope. Scott Hummer says they left a review for Bunker Basics on Amazon. Thank you. That means a lot. I'm still only at 4 reviews, and I'd ideally like to get it up to 25. I sold plenty of books. The issue is just getting people to do their reviews, and I know some people are busy, but I think some people just forget. And also, I think some people, Amazon just blocks them from doing reviews. But if you can do a review of my Bunker Basics, please do a review. My Bunker Basics on Amazon helps me a lot. Also, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, because I'm almost done for prepper month, you know, doing a new update to it. Holly was talking about the trees, but interestingly, this is showing the wrong image. That's weird. I don't know why this is showing the wrong image here, but she was saying blue jays can rip trees apart. We have like one blue jay. We have a lot of crows, but I never see the crows back there. The crows are always up doing their own thing. It could have been a blue jay, but I never see that thing in the yard. It's still a mystery which bird was doing it. I've seen a couple, very, very rarely seen a couple different bird feathers. One of them looked kind of like a robin, but I don't know. The AI swears it wasn't that. X Diego says, I already own a UV5R. Less than 60 seconds into the video, I paused and ordered the other one as well. Yeah, there's a lot of people that just did not want to switch over from UV5R to AR5RM. But in just about almost every single way possible, the AR5RM is better. Higher wattage, C charging, bigger screen, bigger buttons. 10 watts. Did I already say that? The only difference is, the only things I don't like, and it's tiny, is there's no one button to switch the power like the UV5R has. And I like the UV5R's clicky buttons more than the AR5RM's squishy buttons, but that's personal preference. Everything else about the AR5RM is better. And the distance on it is really good. And Birio is talking about meth squirrels. And so I started joking about meth coyotes and meth crows. Meth crows are a real thing. Crows like tinfoil, and homeless cook their drugs on tinfoil, and so the crows go to take the tinfoil, and the tinfoil's got drugs, and it unfortunately kills the crows, and it's a very, very sad. CDK says hi. And then Nate says, can anyone tell me why my AR5RM isn't being recognized? I responded to him. He didn't say anything back. And I made a video and never heard anything. So hopefully he got the help he needed. If your AR5RM isn't being recognized by Chirp, there's actually about 5 or 6 reasons. So, and you got to check them all. I did a whole video on it. Negative Death Space says he's heard of creators having huge problems before trying to get proofs their print on demand having issues completely different than what the doc shows. Yeah, so it happened. So most of you know by now, my art book came and the cyan, orange, and black values were way off. Way, way off. The skin tones were orange and stuff. And that hits a couple of nerves, because back when I used to do my webcomic, I never realized that my monitor wasn't showing me, the same color that everybody else was going to see. And so I worked really hard on this art piece. It was for a contest, and it looked really, really, really good. And I didn't understand that this skin was too yellow. It looked fine, but it didn't look, peach. It didn't look like proper colored skin tone. I didn't find that out until later. The person lied and submitted their own work to their own contest so they could win their own contest and take their own winning thing for themselves, the reward. They entered their own contest and then gave their own reward to themselves, and then said, well, the artist, the person wouldn't have liked this artwork because the skin tone was off. And I'm like, well, dude, just tell me to fix the skin tone. It takes like, I didn't even know it was a problem because my monitor was showing me the wrong color. And I had people act really, whenever I tried to draw other people as my characters, I get a lot of people that would react negatively because the eyes, well, it really hurt my feelings that I was hurting other people's feelings. I worked on the eyes only to find out I was still getting the skin tone wrong sometimes. Well, in print, a lot of times they make you print in what's called CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And that basically turns all your images into JPEGs, and it screws the colors up. So people buy a comic book and the colors are different, and the text all looks like JPEGs. And still to this day, I don't know how comic books do printing and not have the letters just turn out like crap. And they will do it at 4K or do it at 8K or do it at 30,000 DPI or whatever. It's like, that's fine, except it's making artifacts in literally empty space, negative space, if you will. There's no reason for a bunch of jagged JPEG artifacts that make it look like a low-res image to be here. They simply don't exist. And having it higher why would having it higher resolution just make things not exist oh man, it sends me into a really, really upsetting spiral. So suffice it to say, I told Amazon I would not be sending them CYMK, CMYK files. I'll be sending them RBG, red, blue, green files. They're going to have to deal with it. And they had another technical difficulty, and here we am. So there you go. Here we are. So there you go. Sorry, there's some crud in my chest. Also, I heard the Rona's coming back, and it's like Delta, but worse. So we'll see. Barrio says he comes here for the rants. Thank you, Barrio. CDK says Game and Rant, good idea. I'm glad you guys are liking the Game and Rant series. I just got to remember to fix the audio a little bit. I'll do another one of those, but we'll see. The last couple haven't got a lot of views. Barrio says a robot taking his garbage can to the curb would be awesome. That would be awesome. Side note about that, a lot of people are saying that robots are 10 years out. I can tell you definitively that robots entering mainstream, every house, robot dogs in every yard, is 5 years out. The chips will be there by then. The turbines to do the AI to run them from the cloud will be there by then. 5 years. People are saying 7 to 10 to 13. It's insane. They're already being built now. It's just going to take a while for them to ramp up production and ramp up the data centers. So if you can wait 5 years, there will be a robot in every house. We're that close. And LMDMT wrote a really nice review for Bunker Basics. I really appreciate that. And Yuri says Marshall's Law is a Tekken character, which is very cool and true. And yeah, I think we're caught up, and I'll kind of close this out with that poll. Show you guys how the poll did. So 6% actually got 34 votes. 6% said Marshall's Law. Okay. 82% said marital law. I thought that was interesting. This is the correct pronunciation of martial law. Someone said Marshall he him law. That got 12%. And shockingly, 0% said marsupials law. So the correct pronunciation is apparently marital law. And so most of you got it wrong. It is not pronounced marital law. But that's okay. That's what most of you decided, and so that's what I'm going to give you. I thought marsupial law was way better, but yeah, it shows what I know. This is why you don't assume. I also want to point out those. We'll go back. this comments area still doesn't show all of them. And if I remove them from held, they're still not all going back. So there's still a lot of comments hidden. So if you don't see these comments here, I haven't actually had to hide a comment in like a year or something. So if you don't see it here, I apologize. YouTube hides tons and tons of comments, even from me, even ones I respond to. I found comments in videos that I know I've checked tons of times. People are starting to do the whole "you sound boring" thing again. It's just like flashbacks from my video 10 years ago. Everyone, "you sound boring, you sound boring." A lot of people like my voice. A lot of people like my cadence and the rhythm that I talk. So if you think I sound boring, that's just 100% a you problem. This is how I sound. This is how I talk all day. This is how everybody I talk to likes to be talked to. I try to be clear and enunciate. And I try to just talk in a smooth, calm voice. Of course, my voice is a little jacked up right now. I've got, it's like I said, some crud in my throat or something. I'm not sure what the deal is. So I apologize. My voice is probably crapping out. But I'll try to go a little bit longer. Charmaine Montgomery here says, "Evil only wants to snowball more evil. I prefer down-to-earth truth," smiley face. I don't know what those two things necessarily have to do with each other. Evil does beget more evil, but down-to-earth truth, I'm not sure. I don't know if that was implying like what kind of content I should make or what kind of, I don't even know what down-to-earth truth means, but I still appreciate it. And I think people sharing facts, not the truth. See, a lot of people say truth. I prefer down-to-earth truth. Truth is subjective. There's no such thing as down-to-earth truth. There's facts. They're either facts or they're not. So I thought that was interesting. And that's it. And there was one more here as I was scrolling down. People have been magnetoing phones to cars and then tracking them home. They're doing that to gals specifically. They also do other things where they mark your car or something to make you get out of your car, then they attack you. There's several really good awareness videos online. Of course, Ringo's going to come distract me again. I can't think with him doing that. There's really good videos online of how people are trying to teach everybody how to pay attention to getting ambushed at their vehicle. You know, I ignore the news. You're just gonna get ambushed by somebody doing something that you're gonna think is innocent, because the bad guys are gonna intentionally do things to not trigger your alarms, your brain alarms. And you're gonna get attacked and ambushed and killed. The most horrible things are gonna happen to you because you refuse to catch up with how people are attacking, with how people are ambushing. Bad guys are specifically really, really, really good, and they're constantly evolving ways of attacking, especially women and vulnerable, in ways that do not trigger their alarms until it's too late. So this video from News 5 Cleveland, this was one of the better ones. She thought someone had hit a rock with her car, but actually what she had heard was the thunk of them attaching a phone with a magnet to her car. And you might think, oh, why didn't it fry the phone? I don't know. I don't know why it didn't fry the phone, but it didn't. I don't know if they shielded it and then glued the shielding. I don't know. but she was able to fight him off. But otherwise, like, the worst would have happened. Gals, little girls and gals are getting taken every day, right in front of us, in broad daylight. People are following gals to their homes every day, in broad daylight, and doing the most horrible things imaginable. And it's only getting worse. That's not doom. Whatever. Like, this is reality. And this video got 1.9 million views, which is insane for just a little itty bitty news chat. It means people are sharing this. And it's the same in home invasions. I used to argue with people till I was blue in the face. Oh, you just need a revolver. You know, you just need to be a revolver, have a revolver and be a better shot. And, you know, you should be able to fight off one home invader. Who's to say there's one? There could be 5. Well, how often does that happen? A lot now. This door kicking challenge, there's like 4 or 5 guys in these door kicking challenges, and you don't know if they've got real or fake ARs. And you should be able to fight them off a little bit, at least. You might still die, but you'll at least have a chance. And this whole stupid argument, these ding-dongs will say, oh, well, you know, you just take out one of them and the rest run away. They'll say that for some things, but then when there's, you know, when they're home invaders, they don't say, oh, just take out one and the rest will run away. Why is it? They're the same people doing both. The people that are rioting are the same people kicking in your doors. So your logic doesn't really work. And the answer is, you have to learn and fight and train to be able to fight all of them off every time. And at least do some damage, even if it's just to give them a little pause, or, you know, a little deterrent, or whittle them down a little bit, so maybe there won't be a next time. You got to, like, get that threat disparity. You know, you've got to get that you've got to get that threat density, that threat disparity, that, you know, you got to be able to level the playing field somehow, and you do that through training and tactics and having the right tools, and not letting other people tell you what those tools are and aren't. And so I think that's a good bookend to part 1 of this. I know this was longer than usual. I do have, like, other topics planned, so stick around. I'm gonna go rest my throat for a little bit, and then we'll do a part 2. Welcome back to another fantastic episode. Oh, wait, no, this is part 2. I knew I was going to do that. Welcome back to part 2. And so I've got some topics here. I think I was going to go into. I'm at the outside office, and it's like 60 degrees, and it's been raining for half the day, and it's cold. It's really freaking cold. And happy September. The plants, the tomatoes do not like the cold, and the cauliflower don't like the cold, and the zucchini are doing fine. Anyway, I think where part 1 left off, I was going to talk about not reacting to contact as fast as possible. I don't know how I was going to segue all of that, but I wanted to do a thing where I wanted to talk about, like, gals and concealed carry, and gals being constantly lulled into a false sense of security. The Ukrainian gal got just absolutely butchered on the subway the other day. The video released, it was terrible. And I think there's a couple of lessons there, besides, obviously, somebody wants a race war. And I think I've been talking about this for a long time, which is why it's important that you don't react. Oh, there goes Mr. Hopperson. Hello, Mr. Hopperson. You can't react, even though you're seeing people of your own ethnicity being absolutely massacred. And
That is way easier said than done, but that is what they want. But you might also be acting, well, when is the time? The other side riots and protests over every single little damn thing, and whenever conservatives riot or protest or anything, like, they just go to the gulag forever. And I think instead of that being the question, because that sounds a lot like Fed bullshit, what you have to do is you have to take a step back and say, what can you do to prepare for being attacked like that? And everybody always says situational awareness. You need situational awareness. But after you have situational awareness, what do? Well, you have to have the mindset to say, I might have to go out today and do XYZ if I'm being attacked by XYZ. And you have to be able to be ready for those pre attack indicators. You have to have whether you're a man or woman or other, you have to have your pistol on you, not in your backpack, not in your fanny pack, not in your purse, on you, and it has to be somewhere where you can grab it even if somebody's on top of you. And you have to have a round in the chamber. That's just it. And they might get you, but you still have to be able to defend yourself and potentially defend everybody else. On that subway where that happened, not only did nobody protect that gal, but nobody else had any methods or means to protect themselves either. And there's this really famous quote that says, "You don't want to be at the mercy of somebody who's showing no mercy," or something like that. I forget exactly how the saying goes, but that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Everybody else was just hoping and praying that he would just decide to leave all the rest of them alone, and he did, and yada yada yada. Um, you have to be prepared to defend yourself and defend the people around you, and that means if somebody else had seen the pre-attack indicators in time, they could have done something about it. Now, whether or not their entire life would have been over because they did something about it is a completely different story. It's very problematic in and of itself, but that can definitely be a second conversation to happen. And I think part of being able to react in time is not being on so many medications that you're just dulled to the fact that everything in your body is screaming that something's wrong, and you're it's not just being in your phone. There's a lot of people, get out of your phone. Get out of your phone's part of it, but they try to tell you, like, stop being paranoid. You can't live your entire life being paranoid. And that's true, you can't. But if you're on a subway, which is already a freaking death tube, and I don't know, you've got to understand that, like, no matter what the people look like, no matter what the person looks like, they could just pull out a knife and just stab you to death. And you could say that there's statistics that say some people are more likely to do that than others, and different people have opinions on what the pre-attack indicators look like. Um, and I even saw people on Twitter arguing that, oh, that guy wasn't schizophrenic. Um, they haven't. So they've been sitting on this video for weeks. They've had this video for weeks, and they weren't releasing the video. I don't know why they finally did, but the people that got the video cut out the, pardon the pun, they removed the worst parts of it. And I want to believe that some of that is just out of respect for the victim. But a lot of the problems with these, like, horrifically violent videos, and I'll just say, like, October 7th is a part of that too. October 7th was like some really horrible stuff. Some of the worst things ever happened, but the Hamas loves to video everything. The difference between conservatives and just these absolute lunatics is conservatives won't show these videos to everybody, but these radical psychopaths, they share these videos like candy. And like I was saying earlier, like I don't talk about the darkest of the dark, and people complain about doom and gloom, and fear mongering. The worst of the worst is so bad that people won't talk about it. I don't, and part of the problem is like I don't even want to say what a lot of the worst stuff is, because most people can't even imagine the levels of depravity and horror that go on in this world. Unspeakable horror. And these people share the videos like trading cards. There's whole forums of people, all they do is just trade these horrible things. So conservatives and just the news in general, honestly, they won't share these things. You know, they'll tease little bits of it here and there. They'll be, oh, you know, we need to warn, our viewers. Sometimes they warn everybody, you know, that this some people may find this disturbing, and you know, hide the little eyes if they're, you know, if they're nearby. Um, I mean, I've seen so many videos of people getting killed. Not even that I was looking for it by now. That it's I'm not desensitized to it, but it kind of sucks. I feel like a tiny bit of your soul is stripped away every time you see a video of somebody getting murdered. Um, One of the times was a video of a protest or riot, and it was a riot in Seattle, and this guy was trying to save somebody else from getting stomped out, and they stomped him to death. And the news camera just sat there, or well, flat there in a helicopter. The helicopter just filmed the guy getting stomped out and killed. And there was no warning, and it wasn't, I mean, it had been live, but they were replaying it. And you know, the reaction afterwards is like, oh, that was terrible, okay, now on to the sports and weather. And um and another time was just right on CNN's front page, where they had a beheading. This wasn't Gulf War One. It was, I think it was one of the time, I don't know, one of those sand boxes was just finding people and just beheading them. And for some reason, CNN just got a bug up their ass and thought it was okay to just show the uncensored beheading on their. It was, I don't think it was on the news. I think it was on like the website, but it was the front page giant thing of it. And but I would still say like those are the exception, not the rule. When October 6th happened, they went out of their way to censor and remove as much of that as possible, to the point to where a lot of people didn't even believe that any of that was real. And then they apparently went back and showed some of that and more in like private, for some weird reason, private screenings in movie theaters. Uh, just because people had literally stopped believing that October 6th, you know, at that music festival in the Golan, what was it, the Golan Heights. There's this weird thing about history where when the information gets scrubbed, people actually stop believing it. And I think a lot of that is a coping mechanism. And I think we were talking about this last night, where history, they keep changing history. I don't mean history is really changing. I mean, they change the documentation of history. And I think part of that is removing a lot of these videos. Um, I think it's unhealthy to have these videos, and it's certainly unhealthy and psychotic to, take and share the videos and stuff. And I think I can't remember if it was the FBI. I can't remember, but they posted a thing last night saying that they busted somebody that shares a lot of the worst videos, um, the worst of the worst stuff. And I get it. And disseminating those videos is illegal, and it's horrible. However, the fact that people don't even know it exists is kind of part of the problem of why people just don't have their guard up as much as they do. Um, like just how evil of a person, Fauci, you know, is and was. Just for example, like if the videos were to ever come out of all the things that Fauci did, I would like to hope that everybody would be in an uproar, but I think the reality is most people don't have the ability to cope with how bad everything is. The issue with people, I think, not having the emotional capacity to digest horror in its rawest forms is that people are easily blindsided by it. And I certainly don't think it's healthy to have an entire generation of people born born of horror and gore. That's certainly not good, and that's not healthy, and that wouldn't raise a healthy generation. But ignoring that it exists is not good either. People hurting small animals is not good, but you can't ignore it. You can't ignore it either. And what'll happen is they'll find evidence of it, and people will ignore the signs, and it'll just get worse. And we have animals in society that have been arrested 30 times for horrible things, and the judges just keep letting them out. The judges just keep letting them out and letting them out. And I believe these judges have to know. They have to know what they're doing. They have to know that this is going to get worse. And people, oh, I don't follow the news. I don't follow the news. I don't follow politics. I don't follow the news. Me, 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 me. I don't leave my house. Me, me, me. Do you think they have this false sense of security that they're even safe in their own house? Like, you can't just turn a blind eye to the world. And I'm not saying we need to be the world police, but how many times have you heard neighbors say, "Oh, I thought something was going on over there," you know, and then all of a sudden, people just started showing up to my house and trying to escape from that house. And, oh no. And how many times in a neighborhood where it's like, "Oh, we just lived in the quietest neighborhood. Nothing ever happens here." Every single time something ever happens in a neighborhood, they always go, "Nothing ever happens here." Every time some psycho does something, "Oh, he was such a good boy." You know why that is? It's not because it's true. It's because nobody pays attention, and nobody has the emotional capacity to deal with psychopaths. And we I've taken a lot of psychology classes from doctors that have spent, their most of their adult life in the VA, and like, psychos exist. Psychos are real, and there are way more of them than people. Hold on, the car just pulled up. Okay, I'm back. I didn't get murdered or anything, or swatted. Um, all that is to say, I feel like I have to bring up every once in a while that, like, I don't feel like I'm a doom and gloom podcast. I don't feel like I focus on the negative. I guess I feel like I focus on reality. And, I try to stay close to home, in air quotes, regarding uh, the problems at hand. And I think that how to try to, like I was saying before, how to survive first contact. And I think a part of surviving first contact is being prepared. I think it means having the right tools on you. Sometimes that means, a pen and paper, a write and rain notebook. Sometimes that means having a knife, with a couple of multi-tools. Sometimes it means having a flashlight. Hello, Mr. Hopperson. Sometimes it means pepper spray. Like, sometimes it means having a 45. Or a 9. Just not 40. 40's gay. Um, well, here's something going on. Um, you have to have the tools and the training and the knowledge to be able to survive first contact, but you also have to not be so drugged up, stressed out, sleep deprived, that your normalcy bias is going to say that you're okay. And that gal, she let her guard down, and maybe it was a cultural thing, maybe she just didn't know. Maybe she came from Ukraine where it was always safe on the bus, or maybe she was just told to not worry about it. But I'll tell you, and I'm not trying to speak like ill of the dead. What I'm saying is like, that's already what happens here. They try to tell you everything is okay on the bus. They try to tell you that everything's okay on the train, except they keep ratcheting up security. They just assigned part of the police department to the work on the trains again. Now, that means their perception is failing. Their perception um, campaign, right? Their optics campaign is failing, and that it's not safe. Because if it was safe, they would just be able to ram it down everybody's throat that it's safe, and it's not safe. It's not safe in Chicago. It's not safe in LA. It's not safe in Baltimore. It's not safe in Seattle. And it's not safe in Portland. And it's not safe in the smaller and smaller cities. Is getting less and less safe. It's getting less safe. More people need to carry, and they need to accept the fact that things aren't safe, and also that staying in your house isn't safe. If wherever you're sitting right now, all three of you that listen to this, if you don't have a pistol in arm's reach that's unlocked, and you don't think your door can survive one hit, there is a good chance that you would not be able to get to your pistol in time unless you're also have more and more concentric layers of security like fences and gates and uh, lights and sensors. Um, you have to have layers and layers and layers, and most people don't have layers. They just have their front door and that's it. They don't have gravel surrounding their house. They don't have dogs that are even remotely disciplined. You have to have layers and layers and layers and layers. Now, I don't know, all of yours situations, but most of you have shown what around your house looks like, and it would take 2 seconds from somebody to get to the road to your front door, and that's extremely problematic. It's not your fault. What I'm saying is like there are people that live in the middle of BFE that have a mile of nothing, including road in every direction, and you have to go down. I have a friend like that. He's got an easement, 1 lane, mile long gravel road. Um, People only come down that road for 2 reasons. They either live there or they are bad fucking people. And he has to have layers of cameras. Um, it's a whole deal because he's had fucking multiple bad people that are more trained than the average, way more trained than the average person. Um, you have to buy time to call the police or sheriffs. You have to have time to call the sheriffs, and you have to have time to hold out long enough for the sheriffs to get there. And when you're dealing with like two highly trained people, it isn't going to be 5 minutes. It's going to be 25 minutes. Dude, do you know how much ammo you'd better have? Because they are going to be able to suppress and move and cover each other and surround you and get you. It is very hard. You have to turn your house and your property into a fortress that is a real bitch to get through. And a lot of people don't like that because that makes it not fun for them either. And I get that. And that's why what I see a lot of preppers doing is it's lots of concentric circles of gardens. Lots of concentric circles of gardens. Um, but what those gardens mask is more and more layers to get through over and over and over again. But you have to make sure people don't use those against you. And yeah, it takes time and it takes like salvaging, and you got to have a pickup truck and stuff. Like I get all that. It takes having a certain kind of property, but even if you built a teeny tiny little like halfway fence, or I mean, even like a little halfway gate, man, like every teeny tiny thing you do, floodlights, cameras, there's a million things you can do. Um, and so not only do you have to have, your 10 EDC things on you every day, but your house has to be a fortress. Um, so I don't think I'm going to be able to cover my whole entire list. I've got like a big list of things that I wanted to cover, but the next one I wanted to cover, okay, I've got two more I really want to cover. This is in response to a couple other people's videos about YouTuber drama, and I want to say something about copying other people's YouTuber content. Um, so I've been on the Zero Hour podcast. I've been on Love and Life's show, and I've been on Vision's show, and I've been on Show and Tell's show, but that one went away, and that's okay. Um, I didn't record any of those shows, or especially any, you know, I didn't even actually think about this before, but there's also like all the behind the scenes stuff. It's implied that um, when you're in the green room, that none of that's recorded. You're usually setting a lot of ground rules and feeling the vibe and making sure it's going to work, making sure the audio and everything. Um, whoever's hosting that channel, whoever's hosting that show, those are the people that get to moderate and record it. This is a very, very widely understood. This goes all the way back to podcasts, before people even got on each other's YouTubes. Now, you might remember, you know, Alex Jones. I'm trying to think who was on Megan. Who was on Megan's? Was it Alex Jones or Trump? I can't remember who it was, but like, I believe if you're on somebody else's show and you think it's going to get edited, I believe you should have your own independent copy. But that's shit that happens on the news. That's what 60 Minutes got in trouble with. You should be able to have your own unedited copy in case they fuck with it. Um, and also likewise with what happened with Cackles McGee, where they completely edited her stuff around in ways that I think blew a lot of people's minds. I mean, they highly, highly, highly manipulated her interviews, and but I think that's TV. That's edited content. If you're on someone else's show and they're gonna air the whole thing, you just let them air the whole thing. If they want to collaborate with you, they will come be on your show, and then that will be your content. This is very, very widely understood. There is no mystery or secret to this at all. This is literally how collaborations work. And I would say in rare circumstance, even in I will say this. I have been on quite a few podcasts now where those shows are deleted, and I still don't feel like I have the authority is not the right word, the moral high ground to post those, because those YouTubers wanted those videos to go away for a reason. And certainly none of them told me why or even gave me any warning or gave me any usage rights. Um, I think some of it was like J6 stuff. They got freaked out over a lot of J6 stuff. But I think a lot of it, people divulge things about their family lives that they don't want out there. I think that people show their kids a lot. There was this podcast that I really, really liked, and I was on these guys' show 2 or 3 times. I loved their podcast. They weren't like my best friends in real life or anything, but I feel like I'd known these guys forever. And they had their kids on like every show. And that has almost universally turned into just a giant no-no. There's a couple people that still do it, that still have their very young kids out there. But almost what has happened is, I don't know, maybe around like 7, 8, 9 or something, they stopped showing their kids. But certainly, especially like, well, actually both girls and boys, honestly, they stopped showing them at least by like 10, 11, 12. Um, even extremely prominent YouTubers that are just completely armed to the teeth in the most conservative states in the union will all stop showing their kids very, very early on. And a lot of that is just because people have just no boundaries at all. Even just full on adult YouTuber guys that are pretty big guys. There's people with just no common sense. Oh, guys can handle themselves. People are nuts, and they're looking for clout. And if somebody will jump kick Arnold Schwarzenegger, oh wow, it's stupid. It's like below 70 degrees out, and the AC's still going off. Anyway, if the Terminator can get drop kicked at an event, and he's huge, what makes you think that any of the rest of us aren't going to get challenged? So that whole concept that we just have to fight and stuff, and the guys just have to fight and sort things out. I've talked about that before. That's actually really nuts. No grown man with any sense at all wants to get in a fight with another grown man, regardless of how much either one of them wants to fight. Fighting another person is another grown man, or even if you're older, fighting like younger, like late teens, or like, it's not a good trade. Like, fighting is not good. And so, having people know where you are, people are going to fuck with you, people are going to challenge you. It doesn't matter if you're an author or, a gun tuber or whatever. Like, people are looking for clout. It doesn't matter if you have 100 followers or 1,000. If you're a gal, it's, in a lot of cases, it's even worse. There will be gals with like 50 or 100 followers, and they'll show their face, and there will be dudes hunting them down instantly. It is just, this is the universe that we live in, and there's no consequences for it. Well, unless you create consequences. But I can't remember if I was talking about this last episode, but this guy had an order to leave the mom and the daughter alone, and they put the ankle bracelet on him, and the court never gave the address to the ankle monitor company, and he unalived both of them, and they got sued for a lot of money. If you think that technology is going to protect you, if you think the court system is going to protect you, if you think the law, if you think any of this is going to protect you, no. The only thing that's going to protect you is you, and anonymity buys you just like a little bit extra. I'm not impossible to find. I'm certainly not hiding, but I'm not broadcasting it all either. And it does not help that every other week, we get a letter that our identity's been compromised at yet another website. Goodness knows our identities and social security numbers and dates of birth and everything have been leaked just so many times. But that doesn't mean that you just like give up. I don't want you guys knowing where I live. I don't want you guys having my IP address. I'm not exactly super careful, but like, I try. And I think all of you should try too. And so part of that is like, not only do I have to keep a layer between myself and everybody, but part of that means I stay off larger panels of YouTubers because if you're on a panel with 8 other people, you get exposed to 8 times the crazy. Somebody's going to take a fucking screenshot, and if even one of those people does something retarded, you're going to be associated with that person forever, and there's nothing you can do to control that. So part like controlling my branding, controlling my image, controlling the optics. People have asked me why I don't get on these bigger panels. I can't control those people, and every it's not just the prepper community. It's every community has this problem, and oh, it's about time. So you have to really, as a YouTuber, as a creator, you really have to control your branding. You really have to control your image. And even if it's not a great image, it's at least your image and you can try to control it. And a lot of that means, unfortunately, not being on bigger panels. So I don't get on any panel that's more than 1 or 2 interviewers and a moderator. That's it. So that's just my rule. That's been my rule for a long time. I've had way too many negative experiences back. Maybe like 5 years ago, being on bigger panels, you get exposed to just way too many people that you just cannot control. And it only takes one of them going completely fucking psycho. Or in some cases, like it could be a spouse of somebody on the panel. It could be some rabid follower of somebody on the panel. And there's people that can emotionally manipulate you if you allow it in ways that you can't even imagine. And again, doom and gloom, fear mongering. People will try to manipulate you from across the planet by saying they're going to do bad things to themselves or they're going to do bad things to other people, and they're going to do it in your name, and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't know how much of a mind fuck that is until somebody's done that to you, to where they constantly say every night they're going to hurt themselves if you don't do XYZ. And I would say that has become weaponized and refined with this next generation of little bastards that they get in these chat rooms, and they just fucking hold you hostage. They hold each other hostage. You can't control them talking to each other, and all of a sudden, like, one of them does something to another one, and all of a sudden it's your ass, and you can try to protect one of them until you can't anymore, and then somehow it falls on you, and it's just like you look around and you just realize that nobody's responsible, and nobody patrols or polices the internet still at all. Unless you're on a no group and you say the no things, and then the 3 letters are up your asshole. Never mind that there is just absolute psychos, thousands, tens of thousands of psychos running around. I'm not going to talk about the illegals and homeless and people, on drugs or off drugs in some cases. Like, the people that are already here, all the homegrown nut jobs, they've ruined it for everybody. And the 3 letters in a lot of ways have ruined it for everybody too. Like, I know it's not any better in the UK. Like, is it the Union Jack? Is that what it's called? The English flag, the Scottish flag. Like, when did that become a political statement? But every other country in the world gets to fly their flag in your state, and it's fine, or your country, and it's fine. But As soon as you fly your own flag, and all of a sudden, you're the bad guy. People have got to wake up and realize that things have changed. They actually changed a long time ago. It's just finally getting super obvious. And I don't even mean LEDs and AI and EVs and crypto. I mean, like, things have changed. Like, we're entering a very, very dark period. And I hate that cliche. What nobody's talking about. People are talking about it, but like hiding from it. It depends on the audience you're going for. But I would say a lot of people now are looking for validation that they're not the only ones seeing this, and this is what always happens. You have your Alex Joneses way out in front, so way out in front that they sound like Looney Tunes. And then you have the people that are kind of like trying to massage that message a little bit, a little bit better, so it's a little bit more understandable by everybody. And then you have everybody else that seems to slam into it like a brick wall, even though it's all around you. And those kind of what we call the normies, or they call the Overton window or predictive programming. They have all these names for it. But what I will say is when someone tells me out of the blue that 80% of the people at Costco were Indians, and it was a normie that told me that, like, the Overton window is shifting. People are realizing it. You didn't used to be able to talk about recession. You didn't, all the insanity that Kanye used to spew about, and all the insanity that Alex Jones used to spew about, like, past majorities of that shit are coming true. And this is why Alex Jones called it an information war for so long. And I'm not saying everything he says is great. Some of it's a little silly. But man, oh man, they tried to shut him up so bad. And they only try to shut people up like that when they're right. He's not right all the time, but he is right a lot of the time. A lot of the time. And it doesn't know who's in charge of Hollywood. Like, a lot of that stuff is largely irrelevant. But tangentially, why so many people have dual citizenship between America and Israel, why you can't criticize Israel at all. A lot of that is like, there is something to a lot of that. However, so many lunatics already want to wipe them off the face of the planet. Just complete and total innocence they want to just go wipe them off the planet. It's like the only reason they want to do that is because they want to start another war. Doing no stuff to innocent Hebrew people that are over here going to school isn't going to solve anything. It's just going to further the division and further the war. And I keep going back to like the Thai restaurant thing. It's like attacking my favorite Thai food restaurant isn't going to change the Rona. And people have to have the emotional intelligence to realize that, like, two things can be fucked up at the same time. And I'm sure somebody's like, oh, I hear shit about Palestine so much. What about Palestine? Blah, 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 blah. Palestine is extremely, extremely problematic. And people have really, really, really deep-seated feelings about that I think are largely irrational. And what I'll just say, back to the whole just move, just move, just move. Uh, if you gave like-minded Christians somewhere to go, and then everybody had to leave them alone, and then if as long as they left everybody alone and everything would be fine, that would be great. But that's not the world that we live in. And the whole thing with Palestine is people have to be emotionally mature enough to realize that, like, if the Palestinians are going to have a place to live on the planet, it has to be conducted maturely. But they also have to, not be false flagged, but they also have to be, not stirring shit. And I hear people say they were backed into a corner. And it's like, man, this is the problem with the entire world. Every major war has been based off of resources or ideology or both. If Palestine didn't think it was going to have enough resources, then it's going to lash out. And if Israel's going to keep trying to gain resources, it's going to. This is a worldwide problem. Canada can shut off our dams way upstream. They can shut off our rivers way upstream. You think that wouldn't cause a huge fucking problem? Mexico could shut off tons of our manufacturing. We could shut off all their drugs, and they could shut off all of our guns. That's how the world works. All the sandy places could shut off our oil, and we could shut off their missiles, and everyone can shut each other's shit off, and China could shut off all the fucking garbage that they send us, and then we could shut off all the chips that we send them. And there would just be endless wars over resources. It would just be endless wars over resources. And they might like sugarcoat it and say that the wars are about other things, but they're going to be about resources. It's always about resources, and this world is insanely fucking overpopulated. Because we don't have the logistics that we need to get the food everywhere that we need in time. And people will say bullshit, but fuck you. It doesn't. It's unless we're all going to live in 15-minute cities and have massive, massive infrastructure that all it does is move food. Oh man, there's this really great one. It's called "What Happened to Tuesday? What happened to Wednesday? What happened to Thursday? What happened to Friday?" Something like that. Fucking amazing movie. Commercial. You can't commercial ag enough of this planet to feed everybody. Period. You can't. We would run out of water, and we would strip the ground of every fucking nutrient, and then we would die anyway. And if you try to do too much fertilizer in the ground, it leaks into the ground, it leaks into the water, and it poisons all the fucking water. So and I'm not saying we should eat plants. I'm saying exactly the opposite. I'm definitely not saying we should eat bugs, and I'm not saying that we should depopulate the entire planet either. What I'm saying is resource constraints are a massive fucking problem. And what will happen is some people are going to go without, is what is going to happen. It's already been happening for a long time. So I think a couple things are going to happen. I think the city or the state is going to start having to have their own grocery stores. They're going to have to start funneling their own food. That may or may not coincide with universal basic income, and which is going to just replace food cards. And then you're going to get your beans and rice if you're lucky. Some people might say we're going to get thrown in camps. We're not going to get thrown in camps. Some people will volunteer to go into camps, but I will tell you, the I-5 corridor is not getting put into fucking camps. Baltimore, Chicago, LA, all those, Denver, you're not putting those fucking places into camps. You'd have to put a wall around the whole entire place, like Escape from LA or Escape from New York or something, but you're not putting people in camps. There's some blue cities, you might be able to go put some of them into camps if you, but do you think the Chinese, do you think you're going to be able to convince them to go put the Chinese into camps again? There aren't enough National Guard to do that. You think you're going to put all the Mexicans into a camp? Highly unlikely, unless you. It is. That's just nonsense. You're gonna put all our African American brothers and sisters into camps? How the fuck do you think that's gonna work? So who does that leave? The whites? You think you're gonna put the whites into camps? You think you're gonna put Christians into camps? There's no fucking army in the world that can do that. Period. The I-5 corridor is already almost completely fucking lawless. If they tried to put people into camps, it would be very, very bad. And so you just have to hope that cooler heads prevail, which is why that's all I want. All I want is for cooler heads to prevail and just everyone to leave everyone alone. But to act like we're all going to get thrown into camps is naive. It has happened a ton of times. I get that. It will not happen again. They had COVID camps set up to put people in, and they didn't do that either. They can barely even put homeless into camps. They can barely put homeless into fucking camps. What makes you think they're gonna put? There's no army in the world that can do that. I mean, except for the Chinese. I mean, because they're really good at putting people into camps, I guess. But you want to bring the entire Chinese military here? Do it. Do it. You want to unite America really fast? Send the entire Chinese military here for a weekend. Oh my gosh, it would be. You know how many people just want that just so they can finally just, I don't want to say it. The end is not going to be what people think. It's not going to go how people think. Everyone's like, trust the plan, trust the plan. They're putting, what was it? They're putting their case together for something. It wasn't, I mean, it was Antifa the one time, but they're putting the case together for all the judges or something. It's like, no, they're not. They're putting the cases together for all the, no, they're not. You're going to have the orange, human, we're going to send people in to the, we're sending people into Portland, we're sending people into Seattle. Man, I tell you what, like, I think they might send a little bit in, but here's what happens on the I-5 corridor. If they send in the military, the far left is going to send everything they have at it. Everything. They are going to turn it because they've done this before. They will fight it out with the U.S. Marshals. They will fight it out with fully federally deputized people. Go, oh, well, that won't last long. Oh, man, they will throw an endless amount of people at it. especially with how many people are unemployed now and catch and release and stuff. And federally, how long do you think federal? Okay, so like Alligator Guantanamo got to stay back up, and I think they were making a second one, right? Um, and they're shipping off what's his ass, that illegal absolute piece of garbage that they made him come back, and now they're deporting him to Africa or something because they won't send him to, it was in Argentina, Colombia or something like that. No, they're saying, I heard they were going to send him to Africa. Like, if they send anybody in the US to camps, I don't think they're going to be sending them to camps in the US. And I think it's going to be a very, 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 very small number of people, because every legal on both sides, that whole mass arrest thing. Oh no, the South. Oh no, Hyundai might have some illegals. Oh no, they might round up a few too many people. First of all, I'll tell you, they don't give a shit if they round up too many people, because that's already a fucking problem. That was a problem a year ago. That was a problem before Orange Man. They round up the wrong fucking people and administratively screw things up all the time. Uh, so yeah, some innocent might get sent to the gulag, like, if they allow themselves to be taken, which is a different story altogether. But I think what's going to happen if they, like, okay, here's what I'm imagining. Let's pretend Portland. Let's pretend he sends. Let's pretend he does the Insurrection Act and sends a bunch of, which I don't think it's bad enough to do, but I think he got an extension on the DC. I can't remember. Let's pretend though he sends some to Portland, and let's pretend by some miracle, because at the ice facility the other night they were able to do a two-sided push against Antifa and actually worked really well. But let's pretend they corral them, and on a good day they maybe get 50. And let's pretend they black bag all 50 of them. That's not going to stand from either side. But let's pretend that they do some kind of emergency diddly do and keep them all in jail in some secret diddly do black site, and all of a sudden this turns into like Russia or China. That is going to galvanize. That doesn't scare people here. It's not like Russia or China. People are not scared of getting black bagged here. People are not scared about getting thrown into camps, and they're certainly not scared if other people are going to them. And that's when you might say, oh, it's because they get out all the time. No, a lot of them don't. There's a lot of Antifa that have done some really nasty things that actually did get put away for quite a while, and not all of them are insane lunatics. Some of them are cold, calculated psychos. They're not spazzes, meaning that they actually full well knew exactly what they were doing, is what I'm saying. And they go willingly, um, because they're the true believers. There's a lot of true believers. There's a lot of useful idiots. And think about it like new waves getting activated over and over and over again. That's why the whole, well, you just take one out and the rest scatter. No, 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 no. If you've ever played StarCraft, you take one out, it like aggroes the whole group, and then that group aggroes another group, and that group aggroes another group. And Antifa's been recruiting for 5 years, and they want nothing more than to come back. And all the Hamas LARPers, and then you have all these side adjacent sleeper cells that are going to do who knows what and piggyback on them. And they are primed. They've been training. They've been training more than you. They've been training, and then everyone made fun of them, and they just kept training, and everyone made fun of them, and they kept training, and everyone told them how they were doing it wrong, and they got better, and They've become more galvanized and they've become more unemployed. And as the unemployment gets worse, it just fills their ranks. Because they twist the narrative to blame their unemployment on Orange Man, even though this was all by design. So the economy's going to get way worse. It's all going to crash. It's going to look like it's getting better for a little while, and the unemployment's going to look like it's getting better for a little while, and then it's just going to crash even worse. The holiday layoffs are coming. And the holiday layoffs are going to be nasty because that's when everybody needs their money the most. So, anywho, this is an extra long one. I appreciate you all, and I guess I kind of want to end it by saying, like, what's a prepper item that people usually don't think about, and I will say that is uh, plain bleach. I cannot tell you how much of a freaking lifesaver just plain bleach with nothing in it, just plain bleach. It is super affordable. Unfortunately, even if you leave it sealed, it still only lasts a couple years before it turns into water. But if you need to, at least very loosely, clean up a bunch of water, or clean your water bottles, or store water for a little while, and I've got to redo all my water bottles, but I'm gonna save them all just before it gets too cold. You've got to keep, and I would say keep 2 1-gallon bottles. This is why the dollar store is nice. If you can get bleach in small enough increments, plain bleach in small enough increments, that way you don't have to open the whole thing at the same time. And I know people like powder bleach and this and that. I don't disagree. I'm just not very good at using that stuff. But bleach, you need bleach to keep your water clean, to keep your pipes clean, if your pipes are the kind of pipes that you can use bleach on. And yeah, keep an extra bottle that you don't open of bleach, and then when you do have to open that second bottle, go to the store and immediately get another bottle of bleach that you don't open. And then when you do open the bleach, get a marker and put a date on it, just like you would food. Because bleach will go bad. I mean, it doesn't go bad. It just turns into water, and you just have to use more of it until it gets the bleachy smell. But anyway, I'll leave you with that, I guess. So like, subscribe, tell your friends. If you haven't bought my book, buy my book. If you did buy my book, please leave a review. I still only have 4 reviews, which I super appreciate, but I need more. If you stayed this long, I appreciate you. I wanted to do a whole thing about conflict resolution. I'll just say there, if you can't talk to people online now, you're not going to make it when shit hits the fan. You got to get off your big dick and learn how to be humble. And that goes for me too. And if you know what you're talking about, you got to work on your delivery. And if you don't know what you're talking about, you got to be humble. Goodness knows I get shit wrong enough. So work on that delivery and check out 3D printers and test your radios. And talk to y'all later. Bye.